Hello and welcome to this English lesson on personification. We're going to be playing the game Flower today, and we're going to be looking at how we can use this game Flower to think about how we could create a story about the wind and what kind of character our wind might actually be. So I'm going to move across now to Flower, and we're going to have a look at that. I'm just going to bring that up on my screen here. And we start off in this very sort of barren room, and I'm just going to move down to go into the flower, and I'm going to go. We're just going to load up the first level. So as we're working through this, as we're playing through, I'd like you to try and think about what the game is trying to teach us about this story. So what is it that the creators of the game are trying to help us to think about as we're playing? And also what kind of ways you could actually create a character for the wind in your story that we're going to get to soon. So we're just moving back through a very dark, very depressing kind of landscape. It's very black and white. And then we're moving across into the game itself. So once it loads, here we are. So here we are, we're just a flower, and I press the button, and we become the wind. So in this game, you control the wind. I'm controlling the game with my PlayStation controller, and this allows me to move around, move up, move down, just by rotating the controller around. I'm not actually pressing any buttons at the moment, apart from the X button. I'm going to go and have a look at this flower. This is where we started. And we're going to go and find another flower. Right, so there's our first level of flower. And you can see that as we've gone through the field and we've been able to make it greener by pollinating all the different flowers and blowing through the field, the inside of our apartment doesn't feel so barren anymore. So this is a really fantastic game to play. It's very relaxing. It's got a fantastic way of making you feel like you really are the wind flowing through the fields as you progress through the game. So let's go back now to the PowerPoint. What I'd like you to think about is the kind of wind that you might be or that you might bring into your story. So you're going to spend some time thinking about, okay, what kind of wind am I, or what kind of wind can I create a character for? And these are some examples that my students actually came up with in their class. We've got angry wind, happy wind, insane wind, helpful wind, quiet wind, calm wind, ballistic wind, uncertain wind, depressing wind, malicious wind, mischievous wind or mischievous wind, annoying wind, and unpredictable. So what you want to do is see if you can think up what it would be like to feel those kinds of different winds and feel what it would be like to be influenced by some of those winds. What would it be like to feel an angry wind? Or what would it be like to see a helpful wind? Maybe it's a wind that ends up helping people be reunited with the things that get blown away by other winds. So maybe one wind is very mischievous and cheeky and blows things away from people, whereas the other wind comes along and actually blows things back to the person so they can get their belongings back again. And what would it be like to actually have some conflict or some issue come up where the wind is forced into a different situation? So here's an example of a story starter, an introduction to a story. This is one that I've written, and what we've got here is Mr. Brown was walking along the street just like any other normal day. Today he was thinking about ice cream when all of a sudden his hat jumped up and flew away. Mr. Brown chased his hat, which blew up and down, side to side, whirling and tumbling through the air, until it landed in a nearby tree. The cheeky wind had struck again. So I created a little idea of what a wind character might be like through explaining the actions that somebody was going through as they were being tormented by this wind by having their hat knocked off their head and blown away. So what you can do is come up with your own wind character in their own wind situation and see if you can think of what kinds of actions might happen to show this wind's character. In my story, I had the wind knocking a man's hat off and blowing it into a nearby tree. You might have the wind doing other things. And what you can do once you've got that introduction is you can think about a complication or a problem that arises that forces the wind character that you've come up with to change, or to have to grapple with a problem that they've come up against and the actions and the story that unfolds from that. So that's a really good challenge to think about the wind and what kind of character you might make your wind and a story that would go along with that. So have fun with that, enjoy the process, and I will see you in the next video.